Welcome everyone to the conversation. Today, we're diving deep into the dramatic declaration of state emergency in Rivers State. It's a heavy move with major implications for democratic governance, and it really has stirred a lot of debate around the political crisis there.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so Tinubu's announcement declaring a state of emergency, sacking the governor, his deputy, and suspending the House of Assembly, what a shakeup. It's not every day you see such bold measures taken.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and his broadcast was charged with concern over the breakdown of the democratic process. He argued that the continuous political crisis was strangling the benefits of governance for the people.
Yep. One of the points that really stands out is his reference to the governor demolishing the House of Assembly back in December 2023. That's not just a political dispute, it's a constitutional crisis in the making.
Right? And Tinubu pointed out that despite numerous well-intentioned interventions by citizens and leaders, the crisis persisted. He stressed that the continuation of this standstill meant ultimately that the benefits of democracy were completely out of reach for the people of Rivers State.
I find it interesting that Tinubu mentioned his personal efforts to mediate, yet it appears those efforts were largely ignored by, well, the contending parties. Do you think that reflects on the nature of political negotiations in such crises?
Absolutely. It's like you try to reach out in a situation where protocols have already been so sidelined by power plays, and there's the added issue of massive security concerns like the vandalization of oil pipelines by militants. That detail really underscores just how volatile the situation is.
Yeah, that's a critical point. Indeed. And then there's the legal rational argument coming from the Supreme Court. The court said a government can't exist without the legislature, meaning that when the governor decided to collapse the legislative arm, he essentially rendered his own government unconstitutional. That's a pretty clear mandate for intervention.
Right, totally. The court's stance, calling out the unconstitutional dismantling of the House, really supports why extraordinary measures were, in their view, absolutely necessary. It's like they basically told the governor, no way, not on our watch.
Yeah. And not to forget, Tinubu's nomination of Vice Admiral Iboket Ibas as administrator adds another layer. He's been tasked with restoring order and ensuring that the state gradually returns to constitutional normalcy, even though he's not empowered to make any new laws independently.
Exactly, that's a key aspect. Right, it's a very controlled intervention. The administrator can only formulate regulations that need further approval by the Federal Executive Council and the President. That ensures checks and balances are maintained even during an emergency.
However, there's a part that got me thinking. Tinubu criticized the governor for not taking any actions, including failing to disassociate from militants who threatened violence. While I understand the frustration, do you think a state of emergency actually solves deep-rooted issues like that?
That's a good question. I mean, state emergencies are, by design, temporary fixes. They can, in a way, reset a situation, but they don't inherently fix systemic problems. It's almost like applying a Band-Aid to a much larger wound.
Yeah, I get that. Right, it's a bold move that can definitely restore order temporarily, yet underlying political tensions remain. And some might question if the suspension of elected officials sets a precedent for governmental overreach.
That's a valid concern. Yeah, exactly. On one hand, you have a leader taking decisive action to tackle a situation that's runaway and arguably unconstitutional. On the other hand, it raises issues about balance of power and the risk of setting dangerous precedents for suspending democratic institutions.
And speaking of constitutional mandates, Tinubu invoked Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution. That provision is typically reserved for extreme cases. It sends a clear message that if democratic processes break down, even the highest authority must step in.
Right? And that's crucial for maintaining legal order. Absolutely. It's a statement that the Constitution will be upheld no matter what, even if it means temporarily disrupting the standard political order to restore lasting stability. It's a delicate balance between quick intervention and respecting long-term democratic values.
What I also find compelling is the narrative about good governance being a collective achievement, something that has been fought for over the years, and Tinubu's clear message that the ongoing crisis is a betrayal of that effort. It's quite rhetorical and charged with emotion.
Yeah, it definitely resonates with a sentiment of collective loss. Right, and he poignantly stated that the good people of River State are deprived of the dividends of democracy. It's a criticism not just of the present leadership, but also of how political power is being mismanaged.
True. Yet I have to respectfully challenge that point a little. While it's true that the crisis has stripped many access to services and the benefits of democratic governance, some critics might argue that a more collaborative resolution rather than a top-down imposition could have been attempted. What do you think?
Well, I see where you're coming from, and it's a fair critique. Exactly. I mean, it's like instead of imposing an external administrator straight away, one might hope for a negotiated power-sharing arrangement. But then again, with the House already in disarray and the governor disregarding constitutional provisions, there might not have been any other realistic choice.
Yeah, and it's also notable how the intervention comes with a timeline, an initial period of 6 months. That suggests a temporary fix, a probation period, if you will, to recalibrate the system.
Right, that's a key detail. Absolutely, and during that period, the focus is on restoring peace and security, like ensuring the safety of lives and protecting critical infrastructure, such as those oil pipelines. It's a move aimed at stabilizing a very volatile situation.
Yeah, that's critical. It's almost like Tinubu is saying, we won't let chaos reign, but we must also adhere strictly to constitutional mandates. But simultaneously, his speech implies a certain impatience with the slow pace of traditional political processes.
Right, and that impatience is understandable in a crisis. Yeah, it's a kind of rallying cry, urging all political players to remember that their purpose is to serve the people, not just to cling to power or keep clashing endlessly.
And isn't it interesting how the report also sheds light on the role of credible journalism? The detailed coverage in the report emphasizes that these are facts compiled through thorough research. It reminds us how important transparent media is in holding leaders accountable during such tumultuous times.
Absolutely. That element of accountability is key. Absolutely. It makes you think of the role of the media as the watchdog in these situations. Without accurate reporting, investors, citizens, and political actors would all be left in the dark about the true state of affairs.
Yeah, utterly. And then taking a broader perspective, this whole situation in River State underscores larger national challenges, political factionalism, power struggles, and the tensions between state and federal mandates.
Right on, and those are issues seen worldwide, actually. Yeah, it's like a microcosm of a global tension between authoritarianism and democratic aspirations. Tinubu's speech, with all its intensity, is a prime example of how leaders sometimes feel compelled to take drastic measures when traditional systems appear to fail.
So, to sum up, while this declaration of state emergency might be seen as a controversial but necessary intervention in the short term, it also acts as a reminder of the fragility of democratic institutions when they're undermined by unchecked power plays.
Absolutely, that's a perfect way to put it. Right. And it's going to be critical for all stakeholders, including the administrator, the judiciary, and eventually the House, to work in unison to restore normalcy and rebuild trust in the system.
Yeah, and that trust is what ultimately makes democracy work. Exactly. And while the declaration raises more questions than it resolves, it certainly sets the stage for a period of enforced reordering, a chance to fix the underlying issues,
that's the hope.
hopefully.
All in all, this intervention is a wake-up call, not just for River State, but for the entire nation. It reminds us that the rule of law and constitutional principles can't be casually sidelined, no matter how dire the situation might seem.
Absolutely, a wake-up call indeed. Thanks for walking through this intense scenario with me. It's a lot to unpack, and it will be interesting to see how the situation evolves over the next few months.
Certainly, we'll be keeping a close eye on it. Yeah, folks, stay tuned as we continue to track this unfolding chapter in Nigerian politics. Until next time, keep questioning and stay informed.